€700 million for a salary for 1 year. Just try to fathom that. It's absurd.
Welcome back to Monday Vibes, the show where we talk about all the goings on from across the world of football over the weekend. I'm back in the presenting position. Joe Tomlinson.
Part-time Tomlinson.
Job's under threat. I think he did land from wherever it was. He was on holiday at 3 o'clock this morning. So he will be back on your screens, for better or worse, very soon. But joining me today is once again Mr. Henry Hill, the hardest working man at Football Daily over the last week. You've just been everywhere, haven't you?
I'm excited to move behind the camera for a bit after this. I'm not going to lie.
You seem jaded. You seem tired. Exhausted.
It's just too much football. Too much to keep track of. But no, how are you? Good weekend?
Yeah, very good. Celebrated my birthday. Had a great time. And my friends bought me this fantastic Barcelona number from Classic Football Shirts, I believe. So very nice weekend. How about yourself?
That's good. You know what I like is it's not that kind of football material. You can wear this. It's a shirt for all occasions, I'd say.
It really is.
No, I had a great weekend. I was at a wedding. Good fun.
Nice. I heard you did the MC.
Yes. No, it was good. I enjoyed it. Actually, when jokes were landing which weren't even meant to be that funny, you're like, okay, good. This is going to be easy.
Yeah,
Everyone's there for a good time. Everyone's there for a good time, if you remember that. But yeah, it was. I think we're both a bit worse for wear. But
little bit, but we move as they say. Let's kick off with the Women's World Cup, because that kicked off on Thursday last week. Great opening result for New Zealand. I think the first win for New Zealand in a men's or women's tournament against Norway, who are very much the favourites going into that game. Mm-hmm. So an upset to kick things off, and of course, like the England game against Haiti on Saturday, another well, not necessarily an unexpected result, but an unexpected kind of game in terms of how even it was.
Obviously, there's been a few games in the World Cup. We saw USA beat Vietnam. You expect that. I think Japan put 5 past Zambia, but then Zambia had 10 players for a lot of that match too. But other than that, it has been a bit of a tournament of upsets so far. We saw Nigeria draw with Canada, who've been really impressive. Was it John Herdman? I think he took over the men's team at Canada, but he's been great with them. And then Jamaica, we saw them get a draw against France too, and South Africa very close to getting a draw against Sweden. Then Haiti, into that bracket too. I naively thought that England were going to comfortably stroll this game, but I mean, what a performance by that Haitian side. And I think Haiti are currently the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. If you know the political situation there, it's really, really, really tough. I think so. The central government has almost collapsed. So for them to even field a team at a major event it is impressive in itself. But yeah, what a team. And they've been growing for a long time. I think in 2018 most of this side qualified for the under-20 Women's World Cup. That was their first sort of FIFA Global Tournament as a women's side. I think famously the men's got to a World Cup against, I think they scored a goal back in like the 60s or 70s against Pele or something like that. But this team, that shining light up front, 19-year-old Melchi Domorne, 19 years old. I mean, she was busy. She was everywhere. Just been signed by Lyon, who, if you know anything about women's football, that's one of the very best teams in the world. Signed from Reims. 3 key passes against England, 5 out of 7 dribbles completed, was everywhere. Also, their captain Mondasir. She's been a prolific goal scorer for Montpellier, also a great team. And actually, we saw England's keeper Mary Epps pull off a big save at the end to keep England in it. So Haiti now got China, and is it Denmark? I think we've got as well in our group. So full credit to them. I really hope they get out of the group, because that'd be a great story, wouldn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Very much a World Cup of
What did you make of England? What did you make of England?
I think England were good. I think it's one of the. I don't think England were particularly bad. And ultimately, I think a 1-0 win. Whether it's a 1-0 win or a 3-0 win or whatever, I think just getting that first win on the board is really important, isn't it? I know it took a retaken penalty to seal the points, but I think England controlled the flow of the game in general, but we're susceptible to the break. Not having Leah Williamson in the back line is always going to hurt you a bit, I think. Her leadership is invaluable to that back line. But I don't think there's anything necessarily to worry about for England. You see, the top teams at major tournaments do often start a bit slow. It's not going to be like the Euros. You don't have a home crowd behind you. You know, like I don't think England fans are expecting the kind of fireworks that we saw last summer. So yeah, I think England can be pretty positive given the injuries that have affected that squad for sure.
No, you're so right. We saw the same with Australia, didn't we? Sam Kerr ruled out literally on the eve of the game, going into that opening match against Ireland. 80,000 people. They just got the 1-0 win, and then you can press on with your tournament. So yeah, you're so right. I think considering how troubled almost England's build-up has been, injuries, results not really going their way. That first defeat against Australia at in the Brentford Stadium, for them off the mark, press on. They'll probably get out of the group, and then exciting tournament.
See what happens. Yeah, keep your eye out on goings on in Australia and New Zealand. Into the title of the show, Kylian Mbappe. He's back.
Bonjour.
He's back. Back in the headlines. We decided to finally speak about him again after taking a bit of a kind of self-imposed hiatus from the saga that everyone is pretty bored of by now. But there have been pretty major developments this week, haven't there, Henry? PSG officially have put him up for sale. He was dropped from the club's pre-season tour of Asia. Obviously upset that he's not going to trigger that 1-year extension on his deal, meaning that he can leave for free in 12 months' time. Nasser El Khalifi said that it's impossible he will be allowed to leave the club for free. Pretty big words from the chairman. And this also now brings into question issues around employment law. The UNFP, the players' union in France, have said that they reserve the right to take civil and criminal action against any club that behaves in this way. Mbappe also apparently is willing to dig his heels, and this is according to Carve at Sky Sports, apparently willing to dig his heels in and sacrifice next season to leave on a free for Madrid. So that would be pretty wild if Mbappe actually was happy to exile himself from the squad for an entire season. That feels unlikely. That feels like the nuclear option, doesn't it? Okay, on the Mbappe news, you might have seen the light change a bit behind us. We're recording this after the main show, but get spliced back in because there's been some breaking news as we've been recording this from Fabrizio Romano exclusive. Al Hilal have submitted a formal bid worth 300 million euros. We were talking about rumours of a world record fee, 300 million euros for Kylian Mbappe. No talks as yet on the player side. Also reports from James Bench, who's a very bit of an authority on the Saudi Pro League in terms of his work as a journalist. Apparently they're going to be offering him 700 million euros over the course of 1 year, and then he will be allowed to leave on a free to Real Madrid at the end of the year. 700 million euros, apparently 13 million euros per week. I think that works out to something like that over the course of a year. Not sure if I did the maths there quite right, but nevertheless, that's a lot of money, isn't it? You can't really fathom it, to be honest. For 1 year in the Saudi Pro League, pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, do keep an eye on the Mbappe situation because it feels like this is the biggest news we've had so far. That
is mental. 300 million euro for starters, like a transfer fee
for 1 year of football.
That's for 1 year of football. 700 million euros for a salary for 1 year. Just try to fathom that. It's absurd. And then just to let him, that's a 1 billion euro expenditure for a guy for 1 year. I mean, if this happens, that's changed football like we've never seen it before.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think this is the thing with the Saudi Pro League. It really has. It's not. It's not the same as like China or the MLS. It's like the kind of money at play is just so huge, and how kind of transparent it is in terms of like what the Saudi Pro League is to Saudi Arabia in terms of what it's being used for as a kind of the Saudi economy switching to a more kind of tourist-based economy, a more entertainment-based economy. Like it is such a significant thing, and the effect that it's had on the transfer market this summer is just, I don't know, it's just so profound, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have often said, oh well, this is how the Premier League treat the rest of Europe.
Yeah,
it's kind of the big money bully. But yeah, this just feels like another level of...
It's just unfathomable, isn't it?
Of business.
That money. It's just unfathomable.
Yeah. It's kind of nuts. I mean, we saw what Messi in the MLS got his first goal against Cruz Azul. Yeah. This would trump that and tenfold, if in many ways, if they can get hold of him for 1 year.
In his prime.
In his prime. these numbers. I mean, maybe if it's true, I can almost see him doing it. If it's 1 year and it means he can go to Real Madrid.
Apparently, basically his contract with Real Madrid, kind of hypothetically is basically done. I'd say hypothetically, essentially. I think that his terms at Real Madrid are agreed if that transfer is to go through next year. So yeah, pretty mad stuff with Mbappe. But let's get back into the rest of the show.
Either way, it was interesting to see Flo Perez. He was questioned about it, and he just said he's really calm about the situation. Said he was focusing on the Spanish election, which was this weekend too. But yeah, he often keeps his cards close to his chest, hasn't he? He said he wasn't going to sign anyone else this summer. Then when he bought Arda Güler, so
Real don't need to say anything, do they? They know Mbappe wants the move. Mbappe knows they want the move. Like, they don't really need to. I think they've done enough buttering up. They've done enough of the kind of dirty work in the press in terms of, kind of persuading him and putting pressure on PSG. They kind of did that work, last year, the year before, didn't they? I think Real just have to wait and see, because I think it seems like whatever happens, he will be going to Madrid latest next year. I think if he goes to Saudi Arabia, I think there's kind of rumours that there could be a kind of release clause for Real Madrid to meet if he goes there. And, that would kind of be, I guess everyone would be a winner in that sense, because PSG would get a significant fee from a club in Saudi, whether that be Al Nazir or another club. It's Al Hilal, isn't it? Who apparently are willing to offer the big bucks. But nevertheless, PSG get a big fee. Al Hilal or another club would get a big fee next year from Real, albeit a smaller one probably than what they'd pay this year. But great exposure. Another great kind of ambassador to have in the Saudi Pro League, and Real Madrid get their man in the end.
I will say, give you a more direct answer to what you previously asked me. Sorry, I don't think PSG should not play him. I think that's kind of absurd. I think just to say you will not play for us unless you sign a new contract. He is merely operating under the circumstances of a deal which they agreed with him. Do you know what I mean? He's not actually. I know it's kind of hugely frustrating from their perspective, and he could collect a huge bonus and then walk away for free at the same time. But these are terms and stipulations which they signed up to. I mean, they were so desperate to keep him at that moment in time. They really should have just accepted the money then. 'Cause this was always inevitably going to rumble on. But I think PSG, while I kind of understand why they're trying to look like the power here, they're trying to say you're not bigger than the club, whatever. At this point, he sort of is, if that makes sense. And I'm sorry, but those are the terms that you signed up to. I don't necessarily agree with him walking away for free when he said he never would, but he's fully in his right to do so under the contract which they agreed to. So just to say you're not going to play next season is nuts for me from PSG's perspective. They should try and find some amicable solution which gets him out of the club, gets some money in, and reduces the animosity. Because let's face it, what he's done for that team so far is remarkable. His numbers are incredible. He doesn't necessarily deserve to be treated like the prior, because it's not as if he's never given his heart and everything for PSG when he's been on the pitch. I think he's been, he has been exceptional. Yeah,
of course. I mean, he is, by most accounts, the best player in the world. I agree. I think there's PSG could be playing a dangerous game here, in that what you don't want is to have, Mbappe, have kind of bad blood, kind of surfacing between Mbappe and the fans. You don't really want that kind of feeling around the club. Ultimately, this is your top employee, and if you're going to kind of shut him out in this way long term, it's a bad look. What
he said about PSG being a controversial club, I thought was probably unnecessary. Do you know what I mean? When he came out and did that interview saying he probably was never going to get the respect he deserves because he plays for PSG, I mean, they are his employers at the end of the day. I'm not sure you can say that.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's move on though, because I think we're going to be chatting. If this does develop, we'll be chatting about it later in the week as well. Let us know what your thoughts are on the Mbappe situation in the comments. Henry, Fulham, you've the last week there's been a lot of things going on at Craven Cottage. What do you make of it? Raul Jimenez,
oh my God,
£5.5 million in from Wolves. I mean, I don't think that's a bad fee for a player who has, he does have Premier League credentials. I know the last couple of years have been very poor, What do you make of it? And do you see this Mitrovic deal happening as well? Apparently, you want £52 million for him. What do you make of this?
This signing, I'm hearing it as a kind of Jimenez coming in as a Mitrovic replacement, as a kind of reassurance. This is not an upgrade, a middle ground. This is a downgrade by the biggest margin, in my opinion. Because, listen, I feel bad for Raul Jimenez. Horrible head injury. Like, you can't take that. That is for a guy who was at the top of his game. He really was. Great striker. Great striker. But
I think he had about 30 goals the previous season, didn't he?
The numbers are simply like 6 goals in 49 Premier League appearances since. That's most of those are kind of starts, and that's since November 2020 when it happened. Most of his goals last year were in the Carabao Cup, or whatever it's called. So, yeah, it's not great. And actually, I'd almost play Carlos Vinicius at this point. Carlos Vinicius was much better than him.
He's actually quite good towards the end of last season, wasn't he?
He was. Scored a good goal in Fulham's pre-season win over Brentford, which got a bit lucky. Most of the goals were just from distance. But yeah, the Mitrovic thing, apparently we are in talks. We are going to sell him. Tony Khan came out and said some outrageous things about Saudi Arabia, about how they can get away. He literally said they'd get away with murder and go. It was quite like audacious words from he's known to be quite outspoken as a director of football, but he announced that we were never going to sell our best players. Mitrovic wants to leave, it's quite clear. And I've been upset about this, but maybe it's not worth keeping such a disgruntled guy. He's obviously seen Milinkovic-Savic go to Saudi, get a huge pay rise. I think he's going to join them at the same side. Was it Al Hilal? So yeah, it's tricky. Mitrovic is going to leave. We're probably not going to get the fee we wanted to, but getting in a striker is so hard as a replacement. Certainly, as someone who's been, I think he got 13 goals in like 26 appearances last year for Fulham. When he played, he was on it, and obviously he had that championship record. The idea in his head that he wasn't worth £50 million is a joke. He's quite clearly. He's got multiple years left on his deal. He's smashed the championship record. His goal scoring rate in the Premier League is huge. He's Serbia's all-time top goal scorer. Keeps out Vlahovic comfortably in that team. The idea that he thinks that Fulham should downgrade his valuation is actually,
and also the importance to Fulham as well, right? Because without Mitrovic and a viable replacement next season, Fulham are among the favourites to go down without a doubt in my mind. But this is what I don't get quite. Like, I mean, okay, I get it. Raul Jimenez was available at a low price. Get him in, and maybe you can work on another proper replacement for Mitrovic. But if you do get £52 million, I think that's a bit of a game changer. I think that's, I don't see why Fulham can't go in for someone like Jonathan David, perhaps, like go into the kind of middle to top tier kind of striker market. In terms of Premier League spending power, there aren't many clubs who will be able to compete for those kind of players.
I agree with you. Fulham have always had the bonus of being that nice West London club, which does attract. I think we've signed above our weight over the years in many regards. You're right. That could be interesting. But if you look at what they're planning to do at the moment, it's really kind of like shore up that back line. We're even going to go for Calvin Bassey or Salisu.
Both good signings.
Both good signings. Tosin's probably going to leave this summer. Apparently we're interested in Damari Gray. The one positive is we've seen Marco Silva reject Al Ahly, a Saudi offer, big money as well. So he's committed to the club, which is huge. But we've also just lost Paulinho. I actually think that might be a blessing in disguise, because if West Ham start agitating for a move, he probably would. West Ham are in a better position than Fulham at this moment in time. I think it's fair to say. It
depends how long he's out for, though, right? Marco Silva's saying it's not looking good with that dislocated shoulder.
I mean, it's not great for Fulham. That's going to be a really tough start to the year. So I like the fact that we're trying to shore up the back line, which is where we're really, really light so far. It's basically Tim Ream at this moment in time and Issa Diop.
No disrespect to Tim Ream. They had a great season last season.
No, it's no disrespect at all, but we're looking at...
You've always been thin, though. They've always been season. Thin. Yeah.
So yeah, I said last year I'd take 17th. I still think it's important to remember that some of the promoted sides coming up are going to have a tough time of it next season, and Everton, which we'll get onto later, aren't in a great state too. So yeah, I'm semi-confident Fulham will stay up, but it's going to be difficult. And we have to show a little bit of ambition at some point. But maybe we should just respect the fact that we're a Premier League club. But yeah, it's been a horrible few weeks at the Cottage, and I'm wishing it from bigger news. But maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi could be the good news, because apparently we're going head to head with Lazio to bring him in. I mean, if you're Hudson-Odoi, we talked about him last week, didn't we? But if you're Lazio, Lazio at Fulham, where are you going, do you reckon?
I don't know. I'd have some reservations about sections of the Lazio fan base. I think in a kind of non-footballing sense. But I don't know, Lazio Champions League club, you're coming into a forward line where I think you will get minutes, get to play with some really top experienced heads in there.
Under Sarri as well.
Under Sarri, who did play, did get some good performances out of Hudson-Odoi, didn't he, in the early days at Chelsea? So yeah, I would be very tempted by Lazio, I think, and again, you're joining that English contingent in Serie A who have all had varying degrees of success there. And you get to play, get to live in Rome. I would be warming towards Lazio, but
what, over Fulham?
Over Fulham, yeah. Over Fulham. Enough of this Fulham chat, Henry. You've really hijacked the show with this. I feel like there's been a lot.
Scandal.
I feel like there's been a lot of Fulham. I'm joking. It has actually been a disproportionate amount of Fulham news in the last week. It's not just Henry having his way with the script. But let's stick in London actually now. Another club who are losing top talent this summer. Crystal Palace. Galatasaray Zaha to Galatasaray confirmed, joining on a free, rejected that 200,000 K a week, reported 200,000 K a week contract from Palace. Confirmed on Instagram last night that he was leaving. I thought it was a really nice, actually, a really nice thing that he wrote. Just very, just very honest. To the Palace fans, said there's been ups and downs, and talked about how the Palace fans had seen him angry and frustrated many times, but what a servant, I think, really, to Palace. Maybe the club's greatest ever player, Wilfried Zaha.
Absolutely.
Leaves an absolute legend, and enjoys a pretty exciting project at Galatasaray. He was also linked with Lazio, he was also linked with Al Nassr, linked with Fenerbahce, but he joins Angelino and Cedric Bakambu on their list of signings this summer. What do you make of it, Henry, as a Turkish football aficionado? You excited to see him?
I can't believe it. We've talked about Galatasaray a lot recently, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, it keeps being said that they're a Champions League club. They're in the playoff. They've got 2 rounds of playoffs to get through. And as we saw last year when Rangers beat PSV in the playoff round, it's not easy. Like when it comes to that straight shootout, anything can kind of happen. So if he's not playing Champions League football next year, and almost like what's he doing there in many regards? Because that was what I thought that he was after, is European football. Don't get me wrong, great fun. Like their squad, Zaniolo, Mertens as well, Bakambu up front. They let go of Bafétimbi Gomes, which is a real shame. Big free agent out there if anyone is after a fun striker. But yeah, it is a really fun project for him to be part of. But unless they're playing top tier Champions League football, I'm kind of wondering what's in it for him. Is that really the biggest money he could have got across Europe? I don't know, but as you said, does leave a legend. But I think that this has been coming. Whereas, Michael Olise potentially leaving, that would be more of a hammer
massive
blow.
Loss.
Just because it almost come out. Obviously, we know how his quality is plain to see, but for that to sort of come out of nowhere. Yes, they'll get some money for it, but it's quite hard to find these kind of gems at the moment, which Palace have done so well. Veze as well.
I think they did very well to get Olise in the first place, to be honest. This was a guy who was really looking like one of the top talents in the football. Well, he was pretty much the top talent in the football league
at Reading
when he was at Reading. Looked absolutely brilliant. He's still only 21 years old, but big talk of him going to Chelsea. RMC Sports reporting that they've made a £39 million offer for him, which I think is pretty low, actually. I think Palace would be, this is, given that your previous prized asset Zaha ended up running down his contract and leaving for free, I think they'd want something closer to 60 million personally.
I think there's a release clause. I think there's a rumoured release clause around 35. So I think they're going to be slowly sort of bidding above it just to try and get some. But
that's my bad. Fair enough. But I mean,
I agree with you.
I mean, Fabrizio Romano also talking that City are interested in him. I mean, where do you reckon he should go? I think Poch is apparently a big fan. I think personally, his profile fits Chelsea quite well. He's the kind of player that they're crying out for in many respects. A pure playmaker, not a kind of weird hybrid forward, which they have in abundance. What do you make of it?
Well, Sam Abaski was telling me that he was putting forward Olise as a Mahrez replacement at City for a short that we did recently, and I think it's coming out today actually. And I sort of dismissed it at the time, but if you look at their profile and their numbers, they're actually remarkably similar. I mean, yeah, he's crazy, isn't he?
He's quite an underrated dribbler, isn't he, Olise, as well as being a kind of chance creator.
I agree with you, though. I'd almost, for his game time, I think we could see him go to City and not play a ton of football. Whereas at Chelsea, it's kind of like a free-for-all. I think anyone has a chance to show what they can do there. I mean, I think we're seeing Nicholas Jackson get loads of minutes in pre-season, looking really sharp. And I still think it was baffling that people are looking at a 40 million euro signing, saying, he's just going to be a bench rotation option. When for any other club outside like the big few, that is a huge signing, isn't it?
Well, Nicholas Jackson,
yeah. So my point is
they've not signed another striker. Like there's minutes there.
That's it. And my point is, if Olise goes there, I think he will have a huge opportunity on the right hand side of that attack to become something. And as you said, I think, Palace have been really good at signing like humble guys. I think that their kind of character profile has been excellent recently. We saw Joe do that great interview of Everton where touched on a similar motif. And Olise seems to fit the same boat. So if they can get him through the door, a guy that's been tearing it up for the under-21s for France too, which is no easy squad to get into, is it? Let's face it. I think this would be a really wicked signing by Chelsea. Annoying one. I'd be quite impressed with it, which I haven't been with loads of Chelsea's business. But difficult for Palace, but I guess sometimes they've had their top talent's always going to be wanted.
It is tough though, isn't it? It is tough. It does feel like maybe if Olise does leave, they may have to revert a little bit to type and maybe I mean, Hodgson's already obviously back in and has got is taking charge of them next year. They may have to become a bit more of a pragmatic side again, whereas they were pretty exciting in an attacking sense under Vieira, especially in that first season. And it'll be interesting to see who they target as a replacement for Olise if he leaves. Eze's still very much in, and also we need to say that Olise may well miss the start of the new season, tore his hamstring playing for France at the under-21 Euros, so that required an operation. So whoever does get him, he will be out of action for a bit. He's not going to have a full pre-season. Not a signing not without its risks, but also at that price point, I think brilliant for a 21-year-old with his kind of potential. Away from South London now. Everton has Arno Danjuma.
Yeah.
Pretty
6 months too late, this transfer, isn't it?
Potentially.
I was hyping up Danjuma for a move to the Cottages. I won't say Fulham. I've said it now. Fulham. I can't say it again. But I thought I think he's great. I mean, the problem is he went to Spurs last year and just barely got any minutes, didn't he? I mean, he still scored twice, but he was really effective for Villarreal over his time there. 22 goals and 51 appearances. That's great. He's used more as a centre forward than we saw necessarily during his time at Bournemouth. But this guy's he's explosive. His dribble numbers were huge certainly in the Championship for Bournemouth, and then at Villarreal in that Champions League run to the semi-finals, he bagged a ton of goals. So I like this. I mean, it's a €4 million loan fee to sign him, so it's quite a fair bit, but Everton need some more attacking options, pure and simple, don't they? I mean, last year they relied basically on Damari Gray because Calvert-Lewin's had such bad injury issues down the line. At least they've got someone here who can play out wide, who can play through the middle as an alternative.
He can kind of create chances for himself, can't he, as well, which we've not seen with kind of Everton strikers in more recent seasons, aside from Calvert-Lewin, I guess. And even Calvert-Lewin, very reliant on his aerial ability. But it does seem, almost feels like a bit of a Richarlison replacement a year too late, doesn't it?
No, I'm pleased with him. I mean, they've sold Ellis Sims as well to Coventry. I thought he showed really good moments off the bench last year, sort of a youngster coming through. I mean, fair enough, he's going to go to Coventry and get loads of minutes now as a Gyökeres replacement. Yeah,
it does feel a bit premature them selling him, but
I think
they had to.
I agree with you. I do think Everton need more bodies. I mean, Ashley Young, great leadership experience, but they do need more. Let's bear in mind, in January they didn't sign a single player too, so Sean Dyche is really having to grind away of the same squad which he's had for a long time now. We've seen Connor Cody, he's not going to be part of that project next season. Now he's at Leicester. I'm still a little bit concerned for Everton. I think really it's their manager. If they can get Calvert-Lewin on song again, then that's a new signing in itself. I certainly think Danjuma and the kind of qualities he brings is a good or could be a good catalyst to helping move that process along. But I'll be interested to hear what Everton fans think about signings, and their potential business this summer, because it could be another nervy season for them.
I mean, I think keeping hold of Amadou Onana is pretty big for them in midfield, isn't it? I think that's key to their kind of the kind of, you know, how we rate their transfer window at the end of August. Do you think Dyche will keep them up?
Yeah. Yes, I think so.
Okay. Cool. Heard it here first. Let's go onto the continent now, onto the main land of the continent. Marcel Sabitzer to BVB. 19 million euros from Bayern Munich. Done a lot of business with Bayern, haven't they, over the last year?
Yeah.
Borussia Dortmund. I think that seems like an all right fee, doesn't it? What do you make of this? Doogie on Twitter, or X as it's now known, Doogie on X, expressed some concerns, didn't he? He said Jude Bellingham and Rafa Guerreiro, when used in midfield to Felix and Mecha and Marcel Sabitzer, not the sort of summer business that fills me with confidence that Dortmund can topple Bayern next season. Work to do, he says. I think it's going to be tough, isn't it, for Dortmund to put up a real challenge next season, isn't it? Regardless of the signings that they make. I mean, Bellingham's such a huge loss, Guerreiro such a huge loss. It
is, yeah. But I'm not as down on their business so far. I think Ben Sabini is a perfectly reasonable left-back replacement. He played a lot of minutes at centre-half last year, so when you look at the numbers, you think, no comparison. But he's more of a goal scorer. He scored plenty of goals during his time when he's playing more attacking, and if you unleash him on that left side of the attack, I think he's a very solid option. And Metch is more of like an unheralded quality, isn't he? Kind of had a late breakthrough at Wolfsburg, maybe in a better team, step up. It was a big fee for like 13 million euros. And I mean, instead of just replacing Bellingham with one player, I think it looks like they've gone and got two players, because then you've gone Sabitzer, who can play through the middle, he can play out wide, 29 years old, let's not forget, like huge experience, captain of that Leipzig side for a long time. I thought he looked all right for Manchester United. Okay, he didn't play maybe as many minutes as you'd hope, but I think as what they needed was a body in that midfield, and he was just that. I think he was fairly solid. He scored 3 goals in 18 games, which is more than he scored at Bayern Munich actually. It's hard because he's had 2 seasons where his career's kind of stagnated a little bit. I think going into Borussia Dortmund side, where he can be the main guy, 29 years old at this point in his career, he can be a big influential presence in that midfield, which is what they've been crying out for. If we saw how frail they were in that final game, to be unable to get it over the line last year in the Bundesliga, 19 million euros for him, proven in the Bundesliga at Leipzig, a club basically on Dortmund's level. I like the signing. I think it's really good. 19 million euros, it's a snip.
Yeah, I think it'll be key as well, Dortmund next year. I think if they are to put up a challenge, I think it's going to be reliant on that attack being as good as it was towards the back end of last season. You know, we kind of forget, Sepp Haller, full season of Sepp Haller next year. Daniel Malcom came on song, didn't he? Karim Adeyemi got better and better as the season went on. Moukoko is a year older, so I think it is. I think there are reasons to be excited for Dortmund, but it's almost like that midfield just needs to be more defensively sound. And the goals will come. Maybe Doogie should be a bit more optimistic.
Yeah, the thing is, Leipzig are going to look really strong next season. Bayern, okay, they've talked about Leon Goretzka's future. He's had to come out and say he doesn't want to leave. Still talk they might sell him. We're now hearing that Sadio Mane, he's going to Saudi Arabia potentially. That looks like a move that could happen.
I think that's basically done out to Al Nassr. Basically done 40 million euro net salary.
They've obviously
for Mane.
Really? Yeah. Well, I mean, he'll do well there, won't he? He'll crush it. So, I mean, it still remains to be seen how Bayern will look next season if they get Kane.
Well, this is the big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do feel like if Bayern get Kane, it kind of is curtains. Like, I kind of think that's the Bundesliga done. Like, they've got the Lewandowski replacement. I think he's a more complete player than Lewandowski is at this moment in time, or at least what Lewandowski was towards the end of his Bayern career. Just feels like such a good fit, doesn't it? And on that subject, it really does feel like now that the wheels are in motion for this move to happen, because over the last 12 hours, Tottenham owner Joe Lewis has told Daniel Levy that Harry Kane must be sold this summer if the striker refuses to sign a new contract. That's pretty big stuff. We've not seen this before. And it feels like that pressure that Uli Hoeneß was putting on last week has told a bit. Like, that's that confident stance from Bayern, just being like, he's going to come. Like, it's going to happen. If he doesn't want to be at Tottenham, then he's going to come.
Yeah.
And there's also reports that Man United are reviving their interest, but I mean, I think it's too little, too late, isn't it? I think with Bayern such strong candidates now, it would be so silly for Tottenham to sell to a direct rival. I think if United would sign Kane, that's like top 4 confirmed. And I do think, if Bayern sign Kane, then that's Bundesliga confirmed almost. I just think you're going to get at least 25 goals out of him in the league, you'd imagine, playing in a really exciting attack, takes pressure off Thomas Müller in terms of a kind of playmaking stance. What do you reckon, Henry?
It's interesting because before this news about Joe Lewis came out, there was talk that Kane would be happy to stay potentially, may consider signing a new contract next season if things look like they're going to improve, won't sign one this year. It kind of looked like, I mean, in my head, Kane's not going to leave. In my head, he's not going to up his family at this point in his life. In my head, he would accept some bumper contracts and stay at Spurs. But now, if it's true that the kind of pressure's now being put directly on him to make a decision about this, then maybe he will go to Bayern. They're going to launch their third bid. That it's claimed this week. Apparently Thomas Tuchel is pretty hell-bent on getting him through the door. And I agree with you. I think that pressure may tell. And it will take a monumental decision from Harry Kane to actually do it, because his life has been so set, and he's got quite a big family at this point in time. It's not it's not just him, a partner, and one child or anything. I think it's quite a big Kane squad, as it were. So it's a huge decision.
Munich is a nice city to have a family in.
I think it suits his profile.
Some lovely suburbs of that city.
Absolutely. I think it suits his profile really well. But it's
quiet life.
It's an interesting move potentially by Joe Lewis, but if they have half a brain, they will cash in on him this summer while they can.
Yeah, it feels likely, doesn't it? Club owner coming out and saying that, it feels pretty decisive. Let's run through some of the other business this week. Ismaila Sarr to Marseille.
Wow.
For 12 million euros, according to L'Equipe. Pretty mad that it's come to this. I think it felt inevitable that he was going to move to a Premier League club at some point. Stayed at Watford, I think, for 2 years too long, to be honest. And now it's told because they're making a loss on him. 1 year left on his contract. He had a pretty good season actually in the Championship for a pretty faltering Watford side. 10 goals, 7 assists. Yeah, what do you make of this? And what do you make of Marseille's business this summer?
This is an amazing deal, isn't it? I think we've been so excited by Ismaila Sarr for a long time. Looked pretty good at the World Cup as well for Senegal. 12 million euros. That's as much as they've paid for Renan Lodi at left back. He's the same age. I mean, even his numbers in the Premier League, he looked good, didn't he, when he was playing for Watford in the Premier League? His numbers the previous time they were in the Championship were exceptional as well. I think this is wicked. This is great. This is great fun. He's only 25 years old, so Marseille are going to get his very best years in principle. I think they're in the Champions League playoff round. They're not directly qualified for the event. So if they can get in, then Marseille are going to look really fun next season. You're right. I mean, let's not forget Marcelino as a manager through the door. A bit more conservative perhaps than Igor Tudor and Sampaoli were, but still great manager. I'm surprised he was out of the game for so long. A very good league manager as well, isn't he? He's very good at navigating league seasons. What he did for Valencia, incredible. What he did at Athletic Club, it's proven at that kind of stature of club. And I think Marseille's business is really fun. Luis Enrique, they've got a sort of young winger out of Brazil. They've got Aubameyang, who I think is a wicked addition up front. They're going to get his final great years. Really, it kind of fits his profile perfectly. I think back in Liga and I mean, Harriet's someone that we've been talking for a very long time. Only 5 million euros as well. Yeah, I mean, because he's been on loan there the last couple of years as well. I don't know how good his numbers have really been, but I mean, it's a good price for him. Kondogbia had his best years under Marcelino in a Valencia shirt. Malinovsky, he only got 2 goal involvements last year on loan from Atalanta, but still, I think great experience created in that midfield. We loved him at Atalanta, did we? And like I said, Renan Lodi looked pretty solid for Nottingham Forest. They're building another strong squad to have another crack. Hopefully at this Ligue 1 title. And we talked about on Continental Club. PSG. Yeah, absolutely. Taking. We talked about Rennes and their business on Continental Club last Thursday. Some of I know Lens are going to drop off a little bit, the business the players that they've lost, but Rennes, Marseille, it looks like they could be a problem for PSG next season, who've got a lot of bodies they need to integrate into that side too.
Yeah, absolutely. Liga and definitely, I think, a league to keep your eye on at the start of the campaign.
Just quickly, the fact that no other Premier League club was looking at Ismaila Sarr for 12 million euros is baffling.
Yeah, it is pretty mad, isn't it? It's pretty mad, given the general need for kind of right-sided forwards. Speaking of right-sided forwards, Moussa Diaby to Villa.
What a deal!
Great deal, that, isn't it? How much was it in the end?
I think it was about 50 million.
Yeah.
But even so, he's been priced higher than that in the past. That's wicked.
Huge.
That transforms that Villa attack even more. I mean, when you look at Watkins firing, Diaby on the right, they've got Buendia, who's started to show his best creative numbers in behind. I still think Cameron Archer's going to have a great season up front for them as well. Who else is in that attack? I'm trying to think. I think that Moussa Diaby, they're going places under Unai Emery, aren't they? I mean, Pau Torres in at centre half, Yuri Tielemans on a free transfer in midfield. These are huge signings by Villa, and they're showing some unbelievable ambition. I'm very excited to see what they can do next year. I think the Conference League has to be tied up for them.
I think they're definitely one of the favourites, aren't they?
The next few years could be very exciting with Unai Emery at the wheel, as it were. But yeah, Victor Boniface to Leverkusen as a replacement. Someone, if you follow European football, like we've heard about him for a while, haven't we? Came through that Bodo Glimt team, which got a lot of attention for their European run a couple of seasons ago, and then at Union Saint-Gilloise last season, who've made a habit of having good players on their books. 20 million euros. What do you think of that as like another kind of? You never know with Bundesliga signings.
Yeah, I think Leverkusen in general have bought pretty well. I know Klozek took a bit of a while to get going last year, and obviously the Hudson-Odoi loan didn't go as planned, did it? But I think it'll be interesting. I think it's always going to be interesting to see what how young players develop under Xabi Alonso, because he has such a good reputation, despite having a pretty young coaching career. Obviously, this being his first top level job. But I think that Leverkusen attack will always be really interesting in terms of its makeup. But you just got to hope they keep hold of Jeremy Frimpong, because otherwise that right hand side is depleted quite a lot. It'll obviously be great to have Florian Wirtz for a whole season as well. It's a big loss for them. Diaby is a big loss for them, and it's something that puts their top four ambitions. I think it does hit their top four ambitions, because I think you're asking a lot of Boniface to come in and fire straight away. But I think he's a solid signing at that price.
You're right. If they keep Frimpong, then at least they've got that right side of their attack almost secure, because he plays more really as a right winger, doesn't he? So they could feasibly push him further forwards, and as you say, flesh out the rest of the attack with the other options they've got. So it could be potentially very exciting. But you're right, Xabi Alonso, most of his experience has been working with that Real Sociedad youth side, so it makes sense that he's come in and suddenly all the young players are really look up to him. Already one of the most esteemed kind of central midfielders, certainly of the last 20 years.
He has that pull, doesn't he, as well? He has that kind of that stature.
Yeah. No, I like it.
Okay, let's quickly run through some of the other business before we wrap up. Leon Goretzka denying that he may leave Bayern. Malcom from Zenit to Al Hilal for 55 million euros.
He's one of these kind of myth footballers, isn't he? Because he played at Bordeaux, really impressive there. Arsenal were going to buy him, but then Barcelona came in, and then
pretty similar price.
40 million. It's like 40 million euros. Flop there. Went to Zenit, I think, again for like 40 million euros, and he's been out in the Russian Premier League, which certainly since the Ukraine invasion has been out in the cold, as it were. But huge numbers last year for Zenit, and now an absolutely monstrous transfer once again. He's the amount of money that's been spent on this guy, and yet no one's even really watching him play.
Huge deal for Zenit, really. Huge deal for Zenit, I think. But did have a great season last year, like goal machine. So Noah Okafor to AC Milan from Red Bull Salzburg. Scored a great goal against Milan in the Champions League last year. Yeah, sat Kalulu down.
Absolutely. If you want some fun, go on his Wikipedia page and read the description for his remarkable goal. But it's 14 million euros. I mean, sorry, my voice went a bit weird there, but it's a great fee for a really young, exciting talent. He leads the line for Switzerland more often than not these days. His goal return, he's a wide forward. 24 goals since the last 2 seasons for Salzburg. He's been fairly injury hit in that period too. It's just more exciting talent at AC Milan at this price point, which we've said they've been so excellent at hitting recently. He's young. I think he's only going to get better. Did it in the San Siro against them in the Champions League. So, I mean, it's just stacking that attack with more interesting faces, and it's only going to be. I think Milan are doing some wonderful business this season, and this one's just snuck in under the radar. We weren't even talking about this last week.
Yeah, not at all. It didn't really pop up in the rumour mill, did he? And like to think they've got him and Pulisic for around the same price that they got to Ketelara for last year. It is pretty impressive. That attack is just completely changed now.
On to Ketelara, do you think he should stay and try and fight for his place, or do you think he should go on loan? Do you think maybe he's burnt too many bridges with his poor performances last year?
I don't think so. I think there's still going to be opportunities for him there, and I think with a less lopsided attack around him, I think maybe he could thrive. But it's tough because I think Pulisic is probably going to be first choice for that number 10 position. Hard to see exactly where he fits in. Yeah, I think there needs to be a conversation with Pioli about what his first team prospects are really next season, and then a loan would certainly not hurt him in that sense. Sticking in Italy, Umititi leaving Lecce, a club legend after 1 year, going to Lille. Apparently, Lyon were in for him, but they were taking a bit long, wanting to finalise that Lukavar to Leipzig deal, which I think that Leipzig have tabled a €26 million offer for him. So he decided to go to Lille instead, who I think were a bit more decisive in kind of showing interest in him.
Yeah, I mean,
good move for him, isn't it?
Lille on the way back last year. They needed a new centre half. I think Jose Font's still kind of that guy, and he's almost 40 at this point. That loan move to Lecce is so nice, isn't it? After the horrible time he was having at Barcelona, crying because he was getting booed, to sort of take that humble decision to go to Lecce, go for a relegation scrap. He probably never imagined he'd be playing for Lecce once he got that Barcelona move, would he? Really?
No.
For him, it's an example to other players in his situation. If you sometimes you've got to bite the bullet and do it, because like you said, he went there absolutely adored by the fans. Great to see him playing football again. This is a guy who started most of France's games as they won the World Cup, isn't it? Still pretty young. He's had a horrible time of injury, and now he's gone to Lille, who I think have got like Conference League football next year. Big French club. He's back in his homeland. I think it's a really, really nice story.
It is nice, isn't it? Like, tough few years for him. Injuries, mistreated by Barcelona, when all he wanted to do was just see out his contract. So it's great to see Umititi back at the top level once again. I think that's all we have time for today on Monday Vibes. Hope you enjoyed a relatively extensive run through. I feel like the transfer market really is back up and back underway again. Let us know what you think of all the goings on. Harry Kane to Bayern, do you think it's going to happen? And Mbappe, where do you see that going? Let us know in the comments below. Henry, is there anything you'd like to push to?
Yeah, we had an explained about Jurgen Klopp this weekend, I think, which is kind of looking at whether or not he's under pressure, because obviously Liverpool have done some big things in the market this season, and maybe because we saw that period after a certain amount of time at Borussia Dortmund, had a bit of burnout. He's reaching that point where we often say of Jurgen Klopp that maybe he's time to move on. And you feel like with this rebuilt Liverpool side, money spent, he has to prove that he can glue it all together, because he's had the same core of players for so long.
Yep. This
feels like the first time that he's got like a whole kind of new team that he's got to embed that kind of Liverpool Jurgen Klopp mentality into. I think now is a great litmus test of whether or not so his energy at Liverpool still there.
Yeah, for sure. Radical changes. Top four is really the base level expectation at Anfield. So yeah, very interesting video on Jurgen Klopp. Go and check that out after this. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we'll see you later in the week.